I guess I've got a lot of creative thinking to do, a lot more footage to take, and then a whole lot of editing.
Well, we were sitting around the other night, and in talking, a few of us, we realized that here is an open-ended film with no plot that we can see, with no end that we can see, with an action that we can't follow. We're all intelligent people. The obvious thing is to fill in the blanks, to create for each of our own selves a film that we understand. And if we try to think about the reasoning of the director for allowing us the opportunity to do this, giving us the circumstances that enable us to be able to sit here, we can only conclude, at least we did last night, that he wanted it like this.
London. And my literary references are Shakespeare's The Tempest, Homer's Iliad, Odysseus, Alfred North Whitehead's seminal work, 1940s Process and Reality. And my film references are Ridley Scott, Quentin Tarantino, and films, seminal works like Blade Runner, Alien, and Kill Bill.
Is this not why you were here?
What makes a good story is a good yarn. Frequently you can get mired and get stuck in your own sludge with getting too intellectual. I think if you can tell the story, what this film is about, in more or less 30 seconds or a minute, less than a minute, then you've probably got something, because everything else after that is enlargement. This film is about boom.
So the film Quantum Kleptomania is an idea of a film that came to mind in Greg's workshop in a creative thinking space. However, my actual documentary is about the workshop, and the idea is a film that won't be seen in this documentary, but it has evolved from this documentary. Okay, so let's do a complete rehash of the edit.
You're walking from the lift to the door of the office, that's all right. So in terms of, just to summarise how you would go about that, so the beginnings of what the treatment would be in terms of how, it's mixed observational and talking head footage. Yeah, so she talked about, so that's not a lot of words, and I know that may seem like I've thrown loads of stuff out, but we're trying to boil everything down into the essential ideas. So next was Christina. Again, this moves on from the lift and closer to the doors of the office because of the nature of the idea. Examining portals as both a physical representation of social division, using the Deptford underpass to represent a pathway between the gentrified and sterile and the ungentrified and authentic, unique, and as an existential concept fed by sci-fi and the media. Yeah? Did we feel that was... Yeah. I mean, this is just my observation of the ideas. You guys are going to take these, I'll send these on and you correct them. Just create your own. You know, if you haven't written one before or already, just use it as a reference, nothing more. You know, it should be completely disregarded, but it's a reference point. So in terms of that, beginnings of the how, mixed media using still and observational to VO, voiceover, in the main, with all interviews filmed for possible use. So she talked about using sort of VO to accompany it, but if you're going to do VO, you shoot the interviews anyway. You use the sound, you've got the imagery there if you want it. you know, if you've got no intention of using it, doesn't matter, but you'd still shoot the footage just to have it, especially if you're shooting it on digital or on the camera, and you know, you're not paying for stock or processing the same way as well. Observing strict interview criteria, open brackets, fixed number of set questions, seeking to reveal universal truths through
Tara's a spy for the CIA.
So, if we look at your example, that you're here for
Oh, you
learning
weren't even a
French,
part of that conversation,
could
were you? That was
show me a little bit more
my
about
grandfather was
what
in the CIA.
those objectives look
Really?
like? What are the real
And
motivators
yesterday,
beyond
after the training, I went out with some people from another department, and we had a conversation about it because one of my former students is an American diplomat, and one of the lecturers is from the former Yugoslavia, and so the conversation came up, and so I said that, and they basically both believed that I was in the CIA. So when you said that, I was like, who have you been talking to?
Yeah.
He has the skills
You, stop right there!
of a dangerous man.
I need to know what went wrong.
I think he snapped.
But he has no memory.
We don't take care of this, we will both burn. It's trained, conditioned, built to disappear.
I'll give you $10,000 to drive me to Paris.
I get the money, and I don't get hurt.
That's the deal.
Now, the government's top agent
I can't remember anything that happened before 2 weeks ago.
Visa?
Yes.
is about to become their #1 target.
What's in Paris?
It's a name, Jason Bourne.
Let's see if the Paris police can find him for us.
And the only way he can survive
Talk a lot.
is to find out who he is
I guess you're not home. Monsieur Bond!
I don't recognize any of this. I don't recognize any of this.
before they find out
Get the address? I think I got it. Enhance.
where he is.
Get everybody up. I want them all activated. Do it now!
What is it? Something wrong?
Oh, that's so strange.
I know.
You want to do this.
So,
What's your objective?
so
in doing
actually, I
this?
can't reveal my objectives. That's sort of.
Exactly. Otherwise, you'd have to kill all of us.
I went out with some people from another department, and we had a conversation about it because one of my former students is an American diplomat, and one of the lecturers is from the former Yugoslavia, and so the conversation came up, and so I said that, and they basically both believed that I was in the CIA. So when you said that, I was like, who have you been talking to?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so strange.
I know.
You want to do this.
So,
What's your objective?
so
in doing
actually, I
this?
can't reveal my objectives. That's sort of.
Exactly.
Have
Otherwise,
done.
you'd have to kill all of us.
I knew Lloyd Jones, using recollections from those who knew him to discover who her father, Lloyd Jones, really was, and so examine what impact he has had on her life and outlook, simultaneously making a social study of Dalston in the late 20th century and the interaction, impact and legacy of both the Irish and Caribbean communities there.
Sounds good. Wish I could have written that all down, but yeah, I've got it.
We're only reading these out, so I'll send these out to everyone. There's no point sending it out if I've got it completely wrong, so I'm just making sure I haven't. And then just use it as reference. You know, these are just, all I've written down is notes from what you said. I haven't invented anything here. This is your stuff, not mine. So in terms of modus operandi, multimedia, utilising archive, still and moving image alongside talking head, used as is and as VO and observational footage. Yeah? So again, the mix of those. So all of these ideas I really like, but I think we'll talk about each one in terms of approach, but there are loads of, I think Hackney Council would massively want to get some sort of involvement and help you out on this, and certainly the Rio would. And the Rio, there are lots of different places in Hackney that hold fantastic archive. I think you'd get a lot of help in getting this done.
That's good to hear.
So Claire, Destroying Egypt. Again, these are just initial titles that I wrote down from the notes. I don't know, you will title things yourselves. but how the commoditisation of culture ultimately destroys it, using Egypt and its industrial approach to the marketing of its history as a case in point. Yeah? Again, sort of rough modus operandi. Multimedia, utilising talking head, archive and stock imagery with possible first-person journey to museums, exhibitions. So you're actually presenting, I got the impression, rightly or wrongly, that you'd be almost presenting the piece and presenting the questions. So rather than as a sort of stand-away filmmaker, there's a bit more of the actual, you know, when a filmmaker introduces something themselves and introduces the proposition to the audience. I got that impression. I could have been wrong.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Neil, happy. And most importantly, happy's got a question mark after the word. So an ultimately uplifting examination and reflection on a life of brackets satisfactory, melancholy, asking the dual questions, what is happiness and am I happy? Modus operandi, and there's an awful lot of the idea within the modus operandi for me for this, is utilising talking head from family and close friends and observational footage of activities that make Neil happy. Writing, research, teaching, broadcasting, close brackets, alongside narrative video and dramatised tableau of happy moments.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Dramatised tableau?
You know, as you
so reconstructions.
Yeah, they're the reconstructions of moments. So where you showed me those storyboards were you composing happy moments. Okay.
It's true, I never rehearse, ever. I know what I'm going to do, I block it, they come in. I learned over the years, you can do one or two things. You can start off by saying, what should we do? And you're still talking at 1 o'clock and you haven't turned over yet. Or I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I walk in, because I storyboard everything from scratch right through. And so I've shot it on paper before I get there. Actors will say, but you're leaving no room for me. And I've done every which way. I've had two very good actors saying, how about we have a go this way? I say, fine, ready, action.
And the time it takes to talk
all they end
about
up
it,
doing is talking, standing, fisting each other in the middle of the bloody room.
Yeah.
And there's a pause, they cut, long pause, then turned to me and said, that was really boring one. I said, that's terribly boring, dude. And so you got to have the plan. If you got the plan, I tend to go, right, I got an idea. And they usually go, because I try and turn it into a big team effort. And when I'm talking to an actor, actress about will we work together or not, I talk about everything but the bloody screenplay. Because I want to just know who you are. I don't, and Harvey's absolutely right, don't tell them what you want. I want to see how you tick, dude.
The competition of a happy moment. But I got the impression that you weren't recreating them as if they were supposed to be real footage. That you were allowed to observe them as a construction. So put them over as tableau, but that's essentially what that is. It's an overt reconstruction rather than trying to make it look real. And stylised to a point as well. Because I thought that would be quite nice to sort of, you know, because happiness itself is an ethereal concept. You know, you could bring a sense of stylised and dramatic to those, because it's something that's never really real, never really is. So does that?
Yeah, but only uplifting, you said.
Yeah. You know, on glass half full, mate. Do you know?
Hopefully it's uplifting.
Well, you'll find out in the making of it. I assume. But there was, I got the impression when you spoke about. Hi, Bertie. We'll come back and sorry, but I got the impression that your family may not agree with you.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Mr. Corleone, we have a problem. I say we make him dead. You give me the order, I'll take care of it.
personal, Godfather. It's only business.
You're the only one left in this family with my father's strength.
We didn't really touch on a title other than what is documentary, so I've just got it down to what documentary. So an examination of the term and what it both represents and misrepresents, with at its core an in part dramatisation of visual Chinese visitors as a phenomenon. It just wanders off slightly the remit of what we're trying to do for this initial one. I think it's a brilliant idea, but I'm just how we can execute that and keep it going.
No, I've really been sort of thinking about that.
Yeah, but again, this brings me to quantum kleptomania, which again, what you did in terms of the treatment that you handed me, because that looked like an accomplished sort of ad treatment. Do you know what I mean? It was visually led because it's going to be a visually led piece. So for something, as I was saying to you outside, your stuff for me works on sort of many levels intellectually. The fact that you're filming right now has thrown me a little bit, but that's fine. We'll keep going. It's not my first rodeo, David. Because it works on so many different levels intellectually, trying to get an elevator pitch, what I don't want to do is force you into making an elevator pitch and thus underselling the idea and the concept itself. But your concept as a piece, you could make a feature around. What I've put here, and this doesn't even scratch the surface, but it was as close to an elevator pitch I could get with it, was an examination of the commoditisation of education and the possibility of creative succubi in what should be facilitatory positions. Mixed media using manipulated archive, stock and still imagery, alongside observed footage of the open film class and dramatised segments.
Yeah, but as you said earlier, I think it would be really helpful for me, or challenging to, by applying the thing of trimming it right down to, trying to do a succinct elevated pitch with it. Even though it may not get down to that level, I think it will become better and get rid of some of the superfluous bits that I tend to add in.
The superfluous and the multi-layered element of your work that I've seen up to this point, I think is fantastic. And the fact that it goes off on tangents, I would hate to be in a position to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like, because that's a complete nonsense. You've already made something which I thought was really accomplished. Okay, there's not necessarily huge production value running all the way through it, but you circumnavigate that by having proper intellectual content at the core of it. So it's almost like you get it's like the Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project hasn't got the best, this, that and the other, but the idea is so good and it's so scary.
Did they do it on a handheld?
You don't care. Yeah, they spent an awful lot of money making it look cheap. But it gets there because of the central idea. Do you know what I mean? And your stuff gets there completely because of the central idea. So I think it's a great exercise to always look at your work as just enough essential parts, whatever the work is, whatever you're doing at any given, what's the essence of it? What do I need to achieve? How do I go about achieving it? So turning it into an elevated pitch, I think, is a brilliant exercise. But once you've turned it into the elevated pitch, don't by any means stop what you already do as a filmmaker in terms of going off on those tangents and giving yourself that freedom at any point to find new and different narrative strands within it. Because we're going to try and make this a 3 to 6 minute piece. possibly re-examine the ambition of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Almost as if you were treating this as a precursor or like a sizzle reel for your next larger project. Because our intention would be, when we've gotten all of these films done, is to have a platform on which they live so that they become an advertisement both for your skills and for the course itself. And not that I want them to be uniform, of course we don't want them to be uniform, you're individual people, they're going to be individual pieces of work in their own right. But on the same ticket, we want people to be able to go, watch them. People consume shorter, more succinct things more easily. Now, all of these ideas could be extended into large pieces, and I think some of them will. You know, I think you're going to have, for all your ideas, you're going to have a tough time editing them down into 6 minutes if you get all of the component parts. And apparently you've already got those component parts, which we're going to come to in a minute. But I think if we try and get this 3 to 6 minute limit, so we've got something that lives on there, again, I think it's a good exercise in its own right. Yeah? Betty, we've been going through, you're going to write all of these things yourselves, but just to get us started, from everyone's notes last week, I've written down what I felt was the elevator pitch of each piece. So elevator pitch as a definition, a short description of an idea that explains the concept in a way such that any listener can understand it in a short period of time. The background of it is that you're in an elevator with
something like that, you know, I can have Jack Nicholson in the elevator with Robert De Niro, and I've got the elevator operator that I really wasn't paying attention to, and so I just cast anybody. That day will be about how bad the elevator operator was, and with Jack Nicholson and Robert De Niro looking at me like I'm a moron, how could I cast this person? It's not about their scene, something about him. You've got to pay attention.
So I've got to say,
everywhere.
How much I
You'll regret it, you know.
However, I did find a challenge, which was cutting the interview.
Ask questions, because I can't just talk in 5 minutes about everything you've just asked me to
About
say.
the commodification of education.
The commodification of education. So, if we look at pedagogy of the oppressed.
You need to stay.
Oh, sorry, but is my head not blocking the thing?
No.
So Paulo Freire wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed in 1968. He's basically looking at liberatory forms of education versus oppressive forms of education. Guys, do you want to maybe just chat outside because David's trying to film? Sorry. Yeah, what was I saying? So, Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
It's alright. It's James. I was going to say I'm going to kick the shower in, but James is exempt.
Yeah, to be honest, David, if I'm really honest, what I think you need to do is use your editing skills. Take an image, interview me whilst I'm smoking a roll-up, because otherwise I'm going to run out of time. And